Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing it. Oh, one of your favorite costumes that you've made is right behind you. I'm
I am so excited. I know these are a couple of my absolute favorites. I figured I'd pick the comic book themed ones for today.
So let everybody know how they know you outside of your new awesome career in cosplay and your famousness as a cosplayer. How know you?
Yeah, this is like, how do we know each other, right? I spent 20 years at Diamond Comic Distributors. And so that was my comic book claim to fame. You can blame me for barcodes on comic books, since point of sale was my that was what I did at Diamond Comic Distributors, is the point of sale program. And so the reason there are barcodes on every comic book is because of me. Most comic books had barcodes before I came along, but most of the independents had to convert over. So that's been, that feels like a lifetime ago now, though.
But it's so necessary. I think about the way that all of ordering of comic books and ringing up of comic books happens now. And I think that it would be impossible, really, if we had to go backward right now to like minus 35 ka-chunk. I don't know if that would work.
No, it was one of those things that I saw that was really necessary in the industry. And that is, I guess, my legacy, which I'm very proud of. And I miss all of my customers like you, Jen, and get to see you now in a different capacity.
Yeah, I can remember the first time I saw you at convention in a different way. And I was like, wait, what? I mean,
yeah.
Because I'm a player, and I was like, if I'd only known this, we would have hung out so much sooner.
Who would have known, right? So yeah, this was I've been doing this all along. And the one thing I can give Diamond Comics a lot of credit for was that because Steve Jeppy was a mailman before he sold comic books, he said you could do a side career as long as it never interfered with your day job or with your work. And so I was a sewing teacher and quilter and all of this on the side while I worked at Diamond Comics. And so this transition has been quite a lot of fun.
Okay, so let's go back to when you were, I'm assuming you started when you were a kiddo like I did. What was your very...
Oh, yeah. So cosplay and I was, gosh, now I'm really going to date myself, though. I was cosplaying before it was cool. When cosplay, you were just a bigger nerd than the other nerds. You were not, it was not a great thing to be a cosplayer, but now it is such a great time to be a nerd. It's such a great time to be a cosplayer. Cosplay is so much more accepted now, and it's fantastic. So even though I could not cosplay during my Diamond Comic days, I always went to the conventions and talked to the cosplayers. It was my favorite thing about the conventions, was seeing all of the costumes. And to now make this my career, it's so cool.
It used to be called, I think when they started using the term cosplay, I was like, man, I always just called that just dressing up.
That's what we called it too. We never called it cosplay, although I think the word is really perfect. And the word comes from Japan, where they have great words that fill in our words. And so to me, costume play, that is kind of what we're doing. And now we're even seeing cosplay in the craft stores and the big box sewing stores. And so that cosplay has come a long, long way when people are really starting to understand what cosplayers want and what they do. And I remember a time when people would ask you at the sewing store, what are you making? And you're like, I really don't want to tell you. And because you're going to think I'm weird. And now, you know, we just tell everybody what we're going to make because it's good times out there.
The sewing places weren't as hard for me to try to do that because, you know, they're used to Mimas making costumes for their grandkids. But
Yeah.
to go to like Lowe's or Home Depot and try to describe, yeah, I'm making a Mothra with a 24-foot wingspan. So I need to have, I'm making a harness that's able to hold that weight and be able to still move. And they're just like, what, sister?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Even the DIY stores, you know, Home Depot and those places, they start to know too. They're like, well, I'm not building anything per se. I'm making you know, wings that move and really just amazing. The creativity is my favorite part because everyone that we've encountered is so creative, and for me it's a great way to get my creative expression out, to be the characters I always wanted to be. You know, it's awesome.
When I talk to kiddos now about, you know, that are definitely nerds, and I see them in costume, and you know, I want to be kind of encouraging of their, you know, schooling. I'll tell them, I'm like, right now you're not understanding why you're learning math or geometry, but I'm telling you, I use math and geometry in making costumes all the time. So
all the time. Yeah. Yeah, I never thought you would use a protractor ever in your life, and then I use one all the time to draft sewing patterns, and so it's definitely skills that your all your math skills, all those fractions you're learning, you need them in sewing.
So what was your very first costume? Do you remember?
So, you know, I even go back to like the Trekker folks, and I was a member of the Klingon assault group, and I was the only one who had a sewing machine that could sew through the leather and pleather. So I
friend.
but yeah, that was my very first one. I was very active in my college. I guess you would call it like a geek group or whatever you wanted to call it. We were like a gamers guild, and we actually even had a LARPing group. And so we dressed up and ran around in the woods, and we did all of that stuff. And that was in the 90s. That was early 90s. And you know, my latest costume is of course Wonder Woman, and I even have a Wonder Woman sort of like ball gown. So that one is the one that's being worked on right now.
Oh man, that's a lot of work.
It is, but it's worth it.
Okay, so there's simple ways to make costumes, and then there's costumes that need thousands of hours. What is the costume that took the most time that you've worked on?
There is a costume that has a lot of work in like there's a cage underneath it for the outfit, you know, like so that the dress lays on the you know, these underpinnings, you know, there's just I want to say in that costume there's 300 hours. So yeah, they can be very, very complicated, but if you're just starting out, you don't have to be intimidated by that. You can cosplay right out of your closet. You can pick a character that is fairly easy to do. You know, my favorite costumes are the ones that you just make with like a pair of scissors and some paint. You can cosplay pretty much as anything. And that's, you know, the easiest way to get started with cosplay is to just look in your closet. And if you're on a budget, the best way is to go to your local thrift shop or even the discount stores. I know like Old Navy is great because they have so many like basics. You can just pick up different t-shirts in different colors and just use that to start with. And that's some of the easiest ways to get started with cosplay.
Oh yeah. Have I seen you have some more? How do I want to call this? Like a produced show? Did I see that you had a produced show?
Oh yeah. So I'm the host of a web series, which is it's a really cool show. We have 4 seasons right now, and the it's called Con Crunch Challenge. And anyone who is in cosplay probably is familiar with the Con Crunch, and that's I have 24 hours left before the convention and my costume is not done, and the mad sewing and the mad painting and the mad crafting that happens right before the convention so that you can wear your costume out on the show floor. And so every cosplayer has gone through this. Everyone I know has gone through some sort of con crunch. So the show is cosplayers come on and they have 2 hours to make a costume accessory or a whole costume. We've had people make an entire costume in 2 hours. And the whole challenge is, can they beat the clock? And what's great is that everybody's always successful. There's always something that they have finished that's show ready in that 2 hours. We have had cosplayers of all kinds. We've had, young cosplayers like preteen, and we've had, experienced cosplayers who are major guests at big conventions around the country, and they've all taken the challenge. And this past season I took the challenge, and it was a lot harder than it looked. It was to be on camera and know that you still have to finish this thing in 2 hours. It was a lot harder than, and I'm the host, and I've watched all these people do it, and here I was taking the challenge for myself.
So what you're telling us is that it's not all fake. They don't actually have 10 hours when the camera is not on them.
No, we tape that 2 hours in a continuous tape roll, and then and then we cut it down to about 22 minutes. And so that has been the really coolest thing. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Again, watching people really take the challenge and get to know all of that. It's been a lot of fun. I just feel like there's been, there's other shows where there were people going head to head against other cosplayers. And when they approached me about the show, I thought, what I don't want to be involved in is watching cosplayers go up against one another, because somebody always goes home disappointed. And when you're beating the clock, like you are the winner every time. And so I like that part.
Sorry, I'm trying. Someone says there's feedback, so I'm going to see what I can.
Sorry.
No, it's not you. I think it's probably me.
Oh, okay. The volume, the feedback.
And I can do it, so I'm gonna try my best to make sure it's not me at all.
Okay.
What is the most common injury on the show?
Burnt fingers. So yeah, like it's always the glue gun. There's always the glue gun burnt finger injury. The other biggest one is gluing your fingers together with super glue. Those two are the biggest. We have not had anyone really damage themselves or the set, but yeah, those two, burnt fingers on glue gun. Everyone in cosplay pretty much has numb fingers by now. They've been burned so many times that either from your iron or from the glue gun, you pretty much don't feel your fingertips anymore. But that's always a lot of fun. Yeah, so it's a great show. Again, we have 4 seasons you guys can check out.
Are you going to be back to shooting more seasons when it's possible?
So we actually did 2 seasons last year in 2020, if you can believe it. We went into a bubble, and we all had to get tested and make sure we were all okay before we went on set. And it was a closed set, so that was really great. We socially distanced on the set. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, that has really put a cramp in cosplay in general, not just our filming, but everything. Because without conventions, a lot of cosplayers feel like there isn't anything to dress up for. And that 2020 has been a huge challenge for cosplay because even very seasoned cosplayers, even myself, I think I made 1 costume last year. And a lot of us feel like, without an event to go to, just like our sojo, our sewing mojo, our sewing mojo is down. And so that has been a big challenge for 2020. But yeah, we did get to film, and we're waiting to hear if we are going to be doing a new season or not. Yeah, more than likely we will. A lot of it always depends on the sponsorships that we get from the sewing industry, and whether or not they can come into the show. So
I think that what we'll probably see when conventions come back is either the people have to kind of like ramp up their skill set again if they've been kind of taking the time off, or we'll see some master class costumes because people have had, a year and a half or whatever to put into the dream they've always wanted to do, because there's not as many distractions as you would have in normal life.
Yeah, there's been this movement towards slower creation and slower crafting and slower sewing. And the idea is to make it right the first time. I know as a cosplayer, when I was first starting out, I would make something, and there's that whole idea where you make what you make doesn't match up with where your personal taste is. And so you look at it and you think, well, I'm really disappointed with this. I wish I'd made it this way or that way. And then, as your skill set gets better, you want to go back and you want to change what you've made. So I think a lot of cosplayers right now are saying, well, I'm just going to take the time and learn the skills that I need to make it right. And there's just so much education out there on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok even. There's so many ways that you can learn how to do costumes, and any technique you think you need to know, there's a video out there for it.
I agree with that for sure.
And I love that cosplayers are so giving, and they share all of their information and their build tips, and I mean practically everything, which is amazing. And the other thing that's amazing too is when I cosplayed, and I'm sure Jen, you remember the old days, if you wanted to make a particular thing like this Wonder Woman, armor, you had to do it with like a still photo that you found somewhere. Or you're looking at comic books to figure out like how does this collar stand up, and how exact tall is it above the person's head. And these were all things that we had to figure out for ourselves. And now, I mean, this armor is a pattern you can buy. So the availability of going from what you want to be to finished product is way easier than it has ever been. And that's just the power of cosplay and how commonplace it is right now. It's so much easier to do than when I was younger.
Yeah, I've learned a new trick to follow the actual costume designer and asked them, can you just send me over what you had as, like production still, concept art or anything? Because there was, I did a costume for the Kingsman 2 character, Poppy.
Oh, how cool.
And there's a costume that she wears on screen that you never see the bottom half of it. It's just like, it doesn't exist. And I told them, I made the costume for San Diego Comic-Con Masquerade. And after I came off stage, they actually came and talked to me and said that it was exactly right. I was like, well, I'm so happy to hear that because I had to guess. They're like, no,
Yeah.
it's really all over the internet. I'm like, you show me the picture of this costume on the internet anywhere and I'll eat my hat. And they went on and they were like, we never did post that.
You're right. And that is a huge challenge even now for a lot of cosplayers. I know that what we do is we'll even go out and buy the action figure just to turn it around because the action figure had to have been used some sort of production photos, with the license in order for the rest of the costume to be made properly. So I was like, oh, that's an easy way to figure out the backside or the bottom is to buy the action figure. And that way you get, what they had sent over for the license to be produced. But that, one of the things too is that the costume designers are now more available. And the ones that I have spoken to, I've spoken to a couple of them from Game of Thrones. We did a week-long Game of Thrones extravaganza when the finales came out. And the costume designers are so thrilled that cosplayers would want to be their designs. And that, to them is so gratifying that they tell me that, the fact that a cosplayer wants to dress up as something that I designed or that I made is so important to them. And so now they are entering into a lot of conversations with cosplayers about what were you thinking when you designed this, or, what was the thinking about how, characters move in the costume, and they'll explain how those parts are important. I know when I watch movies now, I am very cognizant of how the characters are moving in their costumes because I need to know how that's going to translate into, a costume that I might want to make. And so I know I watched quite a bit of the Wonder Woman 84, mostly just to see how she moved in the costume. Which it doesn't look very comfortable.
What I think is so cool right now is if you go and look at some of the promotional press for that movie, there's a still image of her doing her like deep back bend to like, it's kind of like in the rotunda scene.
Mm-hmm.
See in that picture front and center that she's got a pair of flat shoes on that are just designed to look exactly like the other ones. And so you can wrap your mind around like, there are some parts of costuming that we see on the screen that the back of the costume might be open so that they have more moving.
Right.
That's fixed in, like they're, you only see them from the back, and the front of the costume has something different about it that's designed for that scene. So sometimes what we're trying to make as cosplayers may not exist as a static thing, except for like when they're not moving. So a moving version of a costume that works 100%.
Yeah, and I know in anime, this is a real I can't even really call it a problem, but it's an issue where in anime or in manga, the collars and just the draping, they defy the laws of physics. And so cosplayers are now trying to make that costume, and they're mystified at how does this collar end up standing like straight out with like, what kind of structure do you put inside of that in order for it to happen? And those kinds of challenges are some of the most exciting ones to me, because that's where, I was able to design products that could help sewists achieve those things. And so when I started back into the cosplay business, I had all these sewing business connections, and somebody said, well, what would you make for cosplayers? And I was able to go ahead and do that, which was kind of awesome. And so the So Much Cosplay line of products is now available in sewing stores, independent sewing stores, because you know me, I love my independent businesses. And even some comic book stores are carrying it. And so it's really kind of a cool way to bring together my comic book and sewing things and put them together in a line of products so that you can achieve the cosplay that you always wanted to, and defeat some of those gravity defying things, you know, like collars like this one that stand up, and armor that is actually plastic but looks, you know, like it would come out of a movie. So this is you know, what we do in cosplay. We solve those challenges and we use unusual materials, and that's been part of the fun. It's to me the unending joy of cosplay is that we're seeing everybody just express themselves in this super creative way. And I know that you know, in comic books, the artists and the writers, like, they love seeing their characters in person as well. You know, when somebody cosplays as your character, or as design that you drew, that I think that's, you know, a great marriage of, you know, what these two hobbies could become.
Absolutely. So I know we talked about it a little bit before the show. Did you end up having some things you wanted to do some show and tell for demo?
You know, I will put them up on our Instagram so that you guys can see them. But I, you know, was going to share all these, you know, images of people that we have seen at the various shows. One of the things that we do here at So Much Cosplay, we actually vend. We vended at Comic Palooza in Houston. That was the last time I saw you. We also vended at Dragon Con, and, you know, anywhere that there's a big cosplay presence, we're going to try to show up there. And what we do is we do the triage booth.
So needed.
It is. It just happens, right? You know, accidents happen, cosplay blowout happens, you know, whatever. And so we run a triage, as well as selling products for cosplayers to pick up while they're at the show. And, you know, what's cool is that's when you really get to meet the makers, and you really get to, you know, and they know, they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, I glued this and it came undone. And we get to talk about how to make it better. And that's really, really cool. But yeah, the convention scene, just that whole experience there, it's just, to me, like, again, being able to help people and being able to teach. I've been on a few panels. I've taught full classes at shows before, at Comic Cons before. So it's been a lot of fun. And now we're starting to bring the cosplayers over into the sewing conventions, and that's been a lot of fun. I don't know that many people know that there's sewing conventions. And so now we have that too. But yeah, so all of our pictures that we take of people who have had their cosplay repaired by us, or at the show, I'll stop people all the time and ask them to take their picture. And just the amazing variety of costumes, from casual cosplay all the way to the ones that have taken thousands and thousands of hours, and sometimes years, to make. I just am so inspired by everybody, and that just makes me want to go out and make more costumes.
So I want to talk a little bit about the sewing industry and the sewing conventions that you go to. Do you see an aging of that group, that there's not as many young people that are interested in the industry, and how you can fix that?
Yeah, so what was really interesting to me when I was still at Diamond and not yet doing sewing full time, people would ask me, as the young person in the sewing industry, which is really scary that I'm one of the young people, but they would ask me, where are all the young people who sew? And I would immediately tell you, they're at the Comic Con. They are cosplayers dressing up and sewing and making things for Comic Con. And inevitably, the sewing industry gave me a universal, what's that? And so there's been a huge push to educate the sewing industry that sewing is being done by people who are quite young, who are very enthusiastic about buying sewing machines and materials and notions and all of these things. And they are sewing, but they're not learning from the traditional sewing store or by going to the sewing convention. They're learning through YouTube and TikTok and online, and they're purchasing their materials online. And so they really don't have as much direct interaction with the sewing industry that the sewing industry was hoping for. And so part of the idea behind the So Much Cosplay line of products was to bring cosplayers into these independent sewing stores and to start to form a relationship between cosplayers and the stores. Now, some of the stores, they were like, this is a little too strange for us. And that education hurdle has been huge. But really, for us, the acceptance of cosplay by the big box stores has completely changed their mind in the main sewing industry to say, oh, yeah, no, that's a good market. And, you know, and then I would go to sewing industry trade shows and I would tell them that, Comic Cons are a multi-billion-dollar industry. And when you have 30 to 40% of people going to Comic Con to cosplay, that's a huge segment of dollars that the sewing industry just woke up and said, oh, we probably want a part of that.
It's not just people making one costume for one day. They've got a costume for each day. So multiply that times the 150,000 people that go to Comic-Con.
Exactly. And I think that when they started to realize just how deep the cosplayer really was in their hobby, they could start to see that, oh, that's very similar to our quilters. Oh, that's very similar to our embroiderers. They're super fans of their hobby, and cosplayers are super fans of their hobby. And yeah, we may not yet understand it, but they understand that passion. And so that really started to wake the brands up. And what I'm starting to see now, which is amazing, is the sewing brands are starting to bring on brand ambassadors of cosplayers. So now they're saying, oh, well, we want this top cosplayer to be using our sewing machine when they're sewing. And so now we're starting to see this connection between sewing brands and cosplayers, which I never thought I would see this soon. But within the 3 years of my company starting, with we've already made a huge impact on the sewing industry for cosplay, and it's just going to get bigger.
I noticed that didn't you have wasn't there a sponsorship from one of the major sewing machine companies for your booth at Comic Palooza? It looks
so that was Singer Viking Pfaff. And of all the brands that have really embraced cosplay and cosplayers, the Singer brand has been the top, brand to really say, yes, we even are going to make a machine just for cosplayers. And that, was like a aha moment for cosplay to really cross over into the sewing industry, because they're listening to us. They made a machine with the accessories and the stitches that we need, and at a price point that's really affordable, because they know that cosplayers are usually in a position in their life. When I started cosplay, I was in the beginnings of my career. I didn't have a lot of money. I made cosplay when I could afford it and with the materials that I had at the time. And as my career grew, so did my ability to, better my machine and my materials and things like that. So I don't want anyone to be discouraged by not having a lot of money for cosplay and things like that, because, over time we all get better, and we are all able to upgrade our equipment and the materials that we're able to use and things like that. And so I just say, use what you have now, and the brands are listening. And like I said, with Joanne's being working with Yaya Han, and she has really opened the door for so many cosplayers to be able to walk into a Joanne Fabrics and find the stuff that they need, and have staff members understand what it is that they're making. These are just huge deals and huge hurdles for cosplayers who want to make.
big difference, because most everybody has probably a Joann's or at least another small sewing store where they live, but not everybody has access to the fabric district in LA, for
right. Yeah, and I'm super lucky. I'm here in Chicago. We have, a lot of the great fabric stores like the major cities do, New York, LA. But, out in the rural areas, Joanne Fabrics might be the only thing that you have. And to have a fabric line in your store just for cosplay, and not just at Halloween time either, that was a huge hurdle. We could buy a lot of these cool fabrics around Halloween, but now to have it available all the time is like I said, it's a great time to be a cosplayer.
I wonder if they've got internally at all those companies like a tracking for that. They notice that 6 months out from Comic-Con, there's a huge surge for buying what they would consider Halloween fabrics, and in the area for New York, is there a huge surge, 6 months out from New York Comic-Con, those kinds of things. I wonder if they actually started to track that kind of movement.
I mean, if they're not doing it, they should. And of course, the point of sale person in me is like, yes, give me the data. But I would say, yeah, from a trending standpoint, we almost were afraid that sewing was going to take this big hit, much like, the independent comic book store. We were worried that sewing was going to take this huge hit, but mask making has turned sewing into everyone needed a sewing machine and everyone wanted a sewing machine. And so actually machine sales were through the roof during the pandemic. But that means that now everyone has these sewing machines that they could start making costumes with. And I think we're going to see some upticks in making across the board, across all the sewing, types, quilting and embroidery and crafting, sewing crafting type, products. But we're also going to see a huge uptick in cosplay. And now that conventions might be coming back, we really hope that means, the making will be turned up.
I suspect there are a lot of people that finally found time to catch up on the unfinished projects they had and realized they needed more stuff for new projects. So yeah, I'm glad to hear that the sewing industry has done well through this. That warms my heart.
Yeah, and me too. And I was really worried about my independent stores that carry my So Much Cosplay products. Of course, they need a lot of support because what they have are employees that don't understand what all this cosplay stuff's about. And that's my job, is to help educate them on what cosplayers need and want, and what kind of classes they could run that would, entice cosplayers to come in. And, as a sewing educator, I go to the major sewing conventions, and I run cosplay content there, so that there's now this sort of bridge between the sewing projects, or the sewing world and the cosplay world, and trying to get them to come together. So we've been doing like cosplay contests at the sewing convention and things like that. And those days are the best days. You see people walking around in their costumes at the sewing convention, and you'll get that little old lady who's like, what is going on? What have I come into? And then they have to be told, oh yeah, there's a costume contest today. And then they start to get it. And then they'll talk to cosplayers and talk about construction and, how did you make this? And tell me how, what stitching you used on this costume part. And that's when, everything all comes together. And that's my favorite part.
Okay, so I'm just guessing that there's going to be other, comic book store owners or other people that have businesses that are related that are watching. Do you still have your program that you can help people out? They don't have to know anything. It just comes all together as a...
Yeah, it comes together on a rack. You can buy the whole thing and you get all the products you need. And yeah, it's a really awesome thing. And also now we do have an e-commerce site. So if you are a cosplayer and you are looking for specialty sewing notions, that's what we carry. And, so much cosplay.com is where you can go and learn all about it. And like I said, I was really, really pleased to sort of be that gap, fill that gap, especially for the independent sewing store. Big Box has all their cool stuff, which is great, but your mom and pop sewing store, which there are thousands of, and they didn't have anything specific to cosplay for them. And so but also as a sideline, right? Comic book stores can carry, the foam making stuff, some of these tubes of glitter and foil and things like that. And these are easy. Just go home, cut it up with scissors, iron it on. They're simple to use, but they're also really great as far as putting in that special touch on your costume. And that's what some of this stuff is. And, I love to use my own products.
What would you consider specialty cosplay products? What would be in the list?
So we carry like the foam that makes this whole Wonder Woman. So the foam that's under all this paint, it comes in 24 by 24 inch sheets. And so this is, that standard EVA foam or EVA foam that people use to craft with. So this is something that the stores can carry. And it just, again, it's at a great price point. Are we trying to replace Joann's? No, we're just trying to be another place that you can get stuff. We also have this sewable foam, which you would put into like your collars that need to stand up. And I love this stuff because you can make your costume. It will be very big, but you can fold it up, put it in your suitcase, travel to a Comic-Con, pop it out of your suitcase, and it pops out just the same as it when you stuffed it in there. And that to me is, it fixes a problem, that cosplayers have when they travel from show to show. How do I get it there? How do I, pack it and get it to the show? And so this stuff, this foam, again, helps defy gravity and makes it still look like, like the character fresh out of the suitcase. So these are just, again, there's all sorts of tutorials on our YouTube channel on how to use all this stuff. So we don't, expect that every store is going to have to know how to use everything. We've got training and tutorials and all of that stuff. But just one more.
Is there a costume that kind of like feels like the most epic? You'll have to like really do a lot of research and spend a whole bunch of time, but you really, really want to make it. Are there any of those?
So there were, and it was at Comicpalooza of all places that I saw these ladies, and they made French court dresses, so very 17th century historical reenactment dresses. But when you got closer, they had the Batgirl logo, the Wonder Woman logo, and the Superman logo or Supergirl logo. And I thought, oh my gosh, they're the Justice League, French Court Justice League. And I was like, my mind was just blown. Those kinds of historical reenactment crossovers, that's my jam. So I've been really thinking about what costume can I do that will take those two like historical reenactment stuff and the comic book thing and kind of mash them together. And that level of creativity is pretty awesome. And so, yeah, I've been noodling that one for a while. I don't want to give away my secret just yet, but but yeah, so I've been doing that one, and then I've been doing sort of a giant sewing themed dress, and it's sort of like all the sewing motions, like a pincushion bottom for the gown, and the strawberry emery, is my purse, and a thimble for a hat, and a sewing needle for a wand, and it's sort of like Glinda the Good Witch meets all the sewing motions, and I thought that was a cute little mashup.
People follow you around and try to borrow your pins, and
yeah, it's tough when I go to Comic-Con and I'm vending. I don't wear cosplay because too many people stop me to take photos, and then I can't sell anything in the booth. But I would like to have the costumes up on mannequins, because what I think is that people would look at it and say, oh, I can imagine myself wearing that, because cosplay is the great equalizer. It's for everyone. They're for every body shape, and I'm a plus size girl, and so I can tell you, yeah, that's made for me. It's for every body shape. It's for every race, every gender, every ability, every age. There's no age limits anymore. I've met 75, 80-year-old cosplayers. I've met 2-year-old cosplayers. And so that has really been to me, one of the best things about cosplay is that, you can be anything. Like, I love my Doctor Strange. Some of my favorite photos are of me in the Doctor Strange, but that's like that gender bending, and I do love being the female version of Doctor Strange. And I have lots of awesome friends who make wonderful cosplay where they dress as, they just take, like the female Joker and her boyfriend is Harley Quinn, and so it's really awesome to see how people interpret the character. And, yeah, so I try not to wear, right?
She's freaking out.
Right? Yeah, I try not to wear the costumes in the booth, but that doesn't mean that they're not made for me. So, anyway, yeah.
My most rewarding experience as a cosplayer is walking on the floor at San Diego Comic-Con as Inigo Montoya. Like, and I like I put on hair that looks like real chest hair.
Oh, I love it. Yes.
I put on hair that's real stubble. Having a full conversation. I try to do the voice as well as I can, but I'm a girl,
Yeah.
right? I'm having this conversation walking down the floor with this guy who's like, dude, I love your costume. It's the best thing ever. And he's like, what's your name? I'm like, Jen. He's like, Jesse? No, Jen. John? And then I changed my voice, my real voice, and I said, Jen. And he was like,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, again, it's that amazing ability to be anyone or anything, and cosplay is really, again, just so freeing. There's certain things that people shouldn't be. Obviously, don't try to change your skin tone to be a different race. That's still a no-no. But other than that, if that costume speaks to you, you're going to get a lot of support for wearing it. And, if there is a hater, and I don't come across them very often, but if there is one, shrug them off. There's too many other people who will love you and no matter what you wear. And that's, to me, again, just that connection and the community around cosplay is so amazing. We got each other's backs, and I love that.
Jesse, you could totally wear that costume. Don't worry about the beard. It'll just work perfectly. Put braid something cool in there, like W's.
Yeah, I just wear it with like a black, like bob wig, and I'm like the female, Dr. Strange. It's kind of cool that way. So sometimes I don't even worry about the gender as much.
Oh yeah. Anything else you want to talk about that we didn't cover today?
So I would love for everybody to come to somuchcosplay.com. We have a special for those of you who are watching. We have a coupon code you can enter to get 10% off of our entire website, EXP10. So EXP10. And you can get 10% off our website. And we are on the Instagram, Facebook. We're pretty much everywhere. So come and join us. Come see us. If you have sewing questions, reach out to us. We're happy to help. That's what we're here for. Because first and foremost, I'm an educator and a teacher, and that's what I'm here to do.
You guys still have 5 minutes to get your questions in. Throw them up there.
That's right.
Awesome she is, and you've watched her show, and you've been a fan for years. You can type all those things in too. That works.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, and what kind of characters would you guys want to make? As cosplay, and think big. Don't think small. I always got to tell my son, think big. It's So Much Cosplay. So it's somuchcosplay.com. So that's where you can find us. Also, So Much Cosplay, all one word, on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We're kind of everywhere. Everywhere but TikTok yet. I just, haven't got up the courage to do the TikTok thing yet.
Where do you usually do your work? Do you have like a work table, or do you have a whole different room, or you just...
Yeah, so this is my video studio. We record all of our video content in here. And then across the hall is a bedroom that's turned into a sewing studio. So I have, which I'm in the process of moving around. I rearranged the furniture at the end of last year, and I hate it. So now I have to turn it all to the other way. It's just, when your workflow is messed up, it's like a kitchen. It needs to be like a working area, and it's just the call it the feng shui, whatever you want to call it. It's just not working in there. It makes me not want to go in there until I get it fixed.
So we have just like 3 minutes left, but I have a quick question. If you look like this and you're not willing to lose the facial hair,
right?
what's something you can do to like cosplay characters without facial hair?
So what some people do is they put makeup on it so that it like you can just blend it out. And I know that seems strange, but you know, sometimes you can even use makeup products to kind of like form the beard close to your face. Or you just pick characters that have that facial hair, and that would be something you can do too. There's so many characters that have facial hair that's what my husband's in the process of thinking about. What character can we make that he's got a full beard? You know, what can we do for that full beard? But even with, you know, Doctor Strange, I told him just put darken the beard to the color of just put that temporary color in there and go to town. But yeah, I say go ahead and just work with what you got.
Well, we are just about out of time. Everybody head over to somuchcosplay.com.
Yeah.
If you go to bit.ly/the EXP web, you can visit our website, and on there there's a page for all of our guests for today with the links there. You could also head to bit.ly/EXP guests to head straight to that page. Thank you so much, Cheryl.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me. This has been a blast, and good luck.
We will be back in just about a minute and a half with the legend, Bob Layton. See you in just a minute, guys.